What's up YouTube, Card Boss here, back in another video whereby I talk about cards, money, investing. Today we're talking about sort of like a state of the hobby from the investment standpoint, right? And I think you guys have been watching a lot of content in the last 1 or 2 weeks. It doesn't look very good. From the investment standpoint, a lot of money has kind of like gone out of the window, right? So lots of people taking big L's. You see big prices coming out across all the markets, right? I got here example Marvel, sports, F1, a bit of Magic here, and a touch on Star Wars, right? So this is just a filler, but I'm going to talk a bit across all of these and where I am on each of these markets and what am I doing and what I think that you guys should be doing as well, right? So we're going to go through individually and just to maybe give you my point of view on where are different angles that there might be still opportunities to play from an investment standpoint, or in fact, end of the day, maybe it's just wiser to just keep your money in your pocket, right? So let's begin. Alright, so we're going to start with the one whereby you kind of wish you just, turn off all the hype and didn't get sucked into it, which is Formula 1. Now, I love Formula 1 as a sport, right? I do watch Formula 1, I do watch some of the races, right? And it was kind of natural for me to get into the cars, given that I had a bit of knowledge on the sport itself, who are the main characters, in this case the drivers, what goes behind the scenes and what kind of like make the prices go up and down, right? It's not just about who wins the races. Yeah, mainly it's about that, but there is some intricacies as well, and also the understanding about the difference in terms of the card rarities, like in this case the Topps Chrome 2020 being the first year Topps Chrome. Look at the rarities and all these kind of things, things that you apply from the general sports card world into Marvel and then into F1. But unfortunately, F1 itself, the sport is, pretty niche, right? There is a lot of huge following, but again, I did a video before whereby the interest in the cards itself is just so small compared to the others. There are some people who do collect the cards religiously, but they are mainly just collectors, and the investors who actually come into the space, a lot of them at this juncture perhaps burn, right? Mega burn, and I'm probably just one of them as well. Fortunately, I just decided to just take the loss on a lot of my holdings, especially the purple refractors. I talked about it in earlier videos, and overall this year itself, 2022, took about a $10,000 loss on just F1 alone, right? All I have left is these gold refractors. These are nice gold wave refractors, right? That's number 50. I'm just keeping some of the main drivers here. You can see Lewis Hamilton, current world champion Max Verstappen, and Charles Leclerc. So one of the, I would say the negative catalyst that happened in terms of F1 was Max Verstappen ran away with the championship pretty early. Like he secured it 2 weekends ago in Grand Prix Singapore, and he's currently the world champion. Basically, there's nothing else to fight for in terms of the rest of the drivers. So kind of like the season is just ended right here, so to speak, right? So everybody's just perhaps just gunning up for next year. But even that was the case, right? The interest for F1 cards itself has kind of like went down pretty quickly. It went on quite a steep climb in earlier this year. When I went in, I was looking at the market and I did see that it was pretty heating up. Lots of interest coming in, lots of money being poured in, especially when the new 2021 Dynasty set came in, right? There was a lot of anticipation, people were breaking boxes and things like that. But after a while, secondary market didn't really catch on. Card prices remain high because of high product prices, but nobody is just throwing in money. And then as the races went along, as Max Verstappen secured his title, the interest kind of like just fall off a bit, and so did the cards, and so did the prices. A lot of F1 cards actually dropped between maybe I would say 40 to 60% in value. Next up, we got to talk about one of my favorite cards, Marvel, right? So we got the PMGs, the Jambalayas. I talked about a lot about Marvel in the last 1 year or so, right? And I definitely believe in Marvel. Like, I started off on the journey in early 2021. It's now coming to like maybe about 20 months for me into Marvel, and Marvel has definitely got me back on track in the investing game, and I did make my fair share of wins in Marvel. But what has happened in the last couple of months, right? Lots and lots of negative news on the PMGs, just falling off the cliff. That red set 2017, went down by 95%. Now, so much talk about just PMGs in general crashing, and that actually represents the Marvel investing space, right? How does that impact all the Marvel collectors? Nothing at all, right? Marvel collectors are still doing their thing. Spider-Man metal is still heavy. People are still breaking the packs, even though E-Pack is gone, and still lots of cards are trading on the secondary market. PMGs for the Spider-Man metal are still doing pretty well, okay? But of course, things that caught fire in the early of this year, such as the PMG like this Wolverine here, and certain others like Jambalayas or the Spider-Gwen here, definitely has gonna retrace in terms of pricing. But I wouldn't call Marvel as a crash, but definitely from an investment perspective, I think that a lot of the investment dollars are kind of like exited the Marvel space. There is a lots of collectors, lots of interest at the moment. So there is, I would say, the ecosystem is still working pretty well for Marvel as far as collectors are concerned. Pretty happy with that. Okay, I do collect Marvel cards as well. There are certain cards that I do appreciate. I like Deadpool, I like Spider-Gwen, and I definitely do keep certain cards for long-term holds or long-term investments like the Wolverine here. Do I see Marvel cards coming back to roaring in terms of the prices? I really think that, compared to some of the others that I've seen like F1, Marvel definitely has the most potential to really come back in the near future in terms of pricing. And that's when you see a flood of money coming back into the space and going to the next level once again. Now, before we head to the big one, which is sports, we're going to touch about little things here. So I got a couple of Star Wars cards here. I'm not investing in Star Wars, right? And I don't actually advocate anybody to kind of like invest in Star Wars at the moment. Yes, there's a lot of hype. So the Disney Plus shows, I guess the 50th anniversary is coming soon. So, everybody's talking about that. But I think Star Wars cards in general are still pretty lukewarm in the market. People like to collect the cards, but I think they're far away from being an investable product. Whereas this one here, Magic the Gathering, it's a totally different news, right? So Magic the Gathering 30th anniversary is coming up. There is the release of the 30th anniversary set where they reprint, kind of like reprint, right? The beta set, you have all these proxies, but it's like $1,000 a box. There's lots of negativity around that as well. So people are just, casting that aside and just going back to the grassroots of Magic investing, going to the reserve list, going to the alphas, the betas, right? And in my case, right, these are judge foils, right? Promo foils, and this is a Chaos Cradle. I got some intuition here. Now, I'm not gonna really bore you guys for those non-Magic players, but these were actually promotional cards that were received by the judges who judges the tournament. So these were actually pretty rare to come by, and these were the only foiling versions of the original cards. So they are tough to get, and they are definitely investable, and that's why the space that I'm looking at right now. And there is a lot of potential for these few cards here. So I talked about early on whereby I came from 20 years of Magic the Gathering, moving to sports and moving to Marvel, and then touching a bit on F1, and now just coming back to my grassroots of Magic, which I'm like so familiar with things that are happening going forward. Alright, so I saved the best for last. Basketball cards, right? New NBA season starting next week. Everybody's pumped and excited, but why are card prices still down, right? So of course we look at the external factors beyond the market itself, right? So we talk about inflation, we talk about recession, interest rates highs, people losing jobs and things like that. So all these things affect, consumer spending, and definitely affect how much money you put into cards. So people are still talking about, there's a lot of social media out there, people talking about the pumps and like keeping prices high. Well, I kind of disagree with some of that. I still think that there is some money to be made. Depends on what you guys do, and perhaps in this particular video I'm going to share you my little strategy on my approach in cards. So I think you guys have seen my last video that I did on the $12,000 Michael Jordan trade. So that's one of the things that I'm doing right now, trying to consolidate some of my pieces into bigger pieces and to store value. Not really sure what's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 months, right? So you could see maybe LeBron James doing crazy things, but in fact his card prices may still remain flat. hard to say. So I can't really say for sure what's going on with the prices, but what I can do see the charts and graphs that definitely the prices are coming down for a lot of cards. And what's also coming down at the present moment? Grading fees, right? So when you have lowering card prices, lower grading fees, what that translates to basically the reopening of the grading factory, and that's essentially where I think that I'll be working on for the next maybe 2 to 3 months, just to kind of build that inventory, build that grading pipeline. Given that grading fees are so cheap across the top grading companies, Beckett, PSA, and even try my hands on CGC grading for some of the Marvel cards as well. So, and lower card prices, lower grading fees, that's potential upside going in the future. And it's okay to keep these cards away for 90 to 120 days. That's fine. Maybe in the next 4 to 5 months the landscape is completely different, and just time for your cards to come back. And that's kind of like the recipe that I had during the pandemic, when things were a bit uncertain in the early 2020, and then when the cards started to come back before the PSA shutdown, right? So when the cards started to come back in around, I think, October, September, kind of like I had a lot of fuel, a lot of ammunition to do a lot of stuff, and that was like the right timing. And I think that this is kind of like the right approach that I want to take with sports cards. No doubt that there are some bigger pieces that I still want to hunt, right? They are still underpriced. Kobe autographs are still underpriced, if you ask me, right? So definitely there are still some plays you just gotta look a bit harder than usual, and of course you have to be a bit more careful in terms of coming on money. There's lots and lots of cards to buy all the time, but selling is always the challenge in this kind of market. So be wise, be wary, but definitely for me, the grading factory is that's where I'll be. Alright, so that's pretty much my take across the board, on where I am with all the different genres, right? Sports, Marvel, F1. And basically, with the NBA season starting, I think that's the only space that I think at the moment has potential for some upside. As what I mentioned, grading fees are down, raw card prices definitely down, and there is an opportunity to buy and grade. And I'm just referring to sports cards mainly. Yes, of course you can replicate that for F1 or Marvel, but I think that those markets are kind of like stagnant at the moment in terms of investing. There is still a collector's market, but these guys know exactly what they want and where to get it from, and so there's not much opportunity to get a bit of gains from their sports. On the other hand, there is some upside on that section, so definitely that's an area I'll be focusing in the next couple of months with the NBA season starting. It's time to start to monitor some of these young players, some of the teams and how the performance, and that's going to affect the prices going forward. But strategy at the moment, I think buy raw, low grading fees, buy and grade. That's where you guys should be. Okay, hope you guys got something out of this video. Looking forward to give you guys more content soon. Thanks for watching, guys. Cowboys out.